And we're live. Well, this is just so unbelievable, everything that I'm looking at. I hope you printed this out. We're going to go through it. Tulsi Gabbard really blowing the lid on the FBI and the stuff that was going on. I'm telling you, it is so important. It is so important that Donald Trump won, if nothing else, other than to capture all of this information, everything coming out, everything being declassified as she promised she would do.
The mob that stormed the Capitol on January 6th to try to stop Congress from carrying out its constitutional responsibilities were behaving like domestic enemies of our country. But let's be clear. The John Brennans, Adam Schiffs, were trying to undermine our constitutionally protected rights and turn our country into a police state with KGB-style surveillance are also domestic enemies.
I'm telling you, this is unbelievable, you guys. We're going to dig in, and I mean really dig into all of this today here live on the Trish Regan Show. Everyone, it's good to have you here. We are exploding. We are growing 812,000. Like I can barely keep up. So thank you for all of that. Everything that you guys are doing to make this happen here on this channel. I'll tell you, this is really important what's getting out today. So Tulsi is exposing the people that she believes are the real enemies of the state, the people that were doing everything that they could to make sure you lost your First Amendment rights. I think we've all been through some version of this, have we not? Right? Over the last however many years since 2020, yours truly, having lived it, breathed it, and it's why it's so amazing to come on the other side here and to have this show with you guys and to be able to get out and to speak the truth. So important. And Tulsi's going to do everything she can to make sure we continue speaking the truth. Dan Bongino, meanwhile, he's got a new investigation underway into James Comey and Biden's FBI, and he's saying some pretty explosive stuff, including on Epstein. We're going to get to that today. Letitia, meanwhile, she's sinking in the polls. I'm telling you, this lady's going to lose her job there as Attorney General of New York State. Yeah, like people are really over her. She's finished. Finito. And then we get to talk a little MSNBC because they're coming out with their new company. It's going to be spun off. And I'm not sure that MSNBC is really going to make it. I kid you not. They announced the spinoff. It's called something else fancy, Versant or something. And they announced all these new shows, but it's like MSNBC doesn't even exist. And no wonder. Take a look at those ratings. We'll talk about it. Welcome to the program, everyone. This is the Trish Regan Show, and I am Trish. Good to have you here. As always, I'm watching your comments live in real time. Huge story today. Huge to talk about. Tulsi Gabbard coming out swinging here as only Tulsi can. I want to show you what she was saying there on Fox just last night.
This is where some former FBI agents have actually come out who were serving in the FBI during this period of time and it pointed out exactly that fact, that this line of continuum that they have created here that places a level of suspicion on people. Ultimately, again, the through line here are people who oppose President Biden administration's policies should be seen with some form of suspicion as a potential domestic terror threat. You've talked a lot about, you spoke with Senator Rand Paul about the Quiet Skies program, the secret domestic terror watch list program. Yes. Something that the Biden administration placed me on the very day after I spoke out against Vice President Kamala Harris's policies and warned about the potential of the threat that she would pose if she were elected and served as commander-in-chief. So there are many different examples here that go towards exactly what you're talking about, that by laying this groundwork, they are then giving excuse and license to the FBI and other federal agencies to then surveil or carefully watch Americans who oppose the Biden administration's policies.
It's so wild, right? I mean, well, we knew. I mean, this is not earth-shattering, but what is important is that it's all coming out. And so she exposed this, releasing it to the public. This is the Department of National Intelligence releasing it late last night, and basically what we've learned is that they were labeling people DVEs. DVEs, they called people that were possibly threatening the system, right? Because they didn't agree with lockdowns, etc. And so these DVEs, again, terminology as they promoted within the intelligence divisions, were basically some kind of political or social position, political activism. They were using strong rhetoric. They were generalized a philosophic embrace of what the FBI believed could be violent tactics, and therefore deserved to be followed, deserved to be targeted. So, okay. Let's just get this straight. You have a viewpoint that's different, say, than the federal government. Maybe you don't think that we should be having COVID lockdowns. Maybe you don't think that your business should be put out of business. Maybe you don't agree with the Biden administration. Maybe, like me, you had done some reporting, not just on COVID, but also on the Biden laptop. Maybe you shared a story on the Biden laptop. That was enough to put you on the list, so to speak, because their narrative was something else entirely, even though their narrative was not actually true at all, especially if you think about the 51X spooks, right? Brennan was on that list. That it came out with a big, giant piece in Politico, nonetheless, which was collecting USAID money on top of it for the subscriptions. You see how it's all so incestuous, ladies and gentlemen? And they said, don't believe any of that. That's just a bunch of garbage. All that Rudy Giuliani and the Russians are trying to sell you about the Hunter Biden laptop, except that it was actually all true. But if you dared to actually speak up and say, hey, maybe this isn't right, maybe this isn't true, then you are part of the problem. You are the domestic violence extremists, the DVE, right? That they then were warranted and justified to go after. So much for freedom of speech, so much for having a different opinion than anyone else. They could just shut you down like that. Game over. And so Tulsi's coming out and she's blowing the lid on all of it. Here's what she was saying. Don't forget about Biden and the entire administration while he was still in office.
The mob that stormed the Capitol on January 6th to try to stop Congress from carrying out its constitutional responsibilities were behaving like domestic enemies of our country. But let's be clear. The John Brennans, Adam Schiffs, were trying to undermine our constitutionally protected rights and turn our country into a police state with KGB-style surveillance, are also domestic enemies and much more powerful and therefore dangerous than the mob that stormed the Capitol.
More powerful, more dangerous. You see what she's saying? Because they have a bigger position. And by the way, she's not condoning anything on J6, etc. She's just pointing out that we have a problem with some of the people that were in charge. She continues and actually highlights some of the things that Brennan said.
Now, John Brennan said,
so I know looking forward that the members of the Biden team who have been nominated or have been appointed are now moving in laser-like fashion to try to uncover as much as they can about what looks very similar to insurgency movements that we've seen overseas, where they germinate in different parts of the country and they gain strength, and it brings together an unholy alliance frequently of religious extremists, authoritarians, fascists, bigots, racists, nativists, even libertarians.
Now, President Biden, I call upon you and all members of Congress from both parties to denounce these efforts by the likes of Brennan and others to take away our civil liberties that are endowed to us by our Creator and guaranteed in our Constitution. If you don't stand up to these people now, then our country will be in great peril.
Great peril indeed. Well, here's the good news, guys. She's now Director of National Intelligence. Donald Trump is in power. Letitia James is about to get voted out of New York. And the Democrats have got nothing but, AOC front and center as their answer to everything. So, it's funny, America has a way of swinging, right? The pendulum goes back and forth. And this is a case where the left took it too far. Joe Biden has said his one regret was that he didn't do enough to police, quote unquote, misinformation. I'm like, are you kidding me, buddy? You didn't do enough? He said this to Susan Page over at USA Today for his final exit interview. And she said, do you have any regrets? And he said, my one regret was not actually policing the information enough, that there was too much misinformation out there. Misinformation, I don't know, about stuff like he himself, right? Was this misinformation when we started to say, oh, poor Joe, he looks like he's not quite with it because he's wandering off at G7, just wandering away from the camera because he wants to go check out that parachuter, to the point where Georgia Maloney has to go and gather him. Look at her. She's just fantastic. You know, this is going to hit the Democrats really, really hard. She brings him back to the camera and he's trying to put on his sunglasses and he's moving so freaking slow because he's so old and by then had so much wrong with him. In other words, you don't just suddenly come down with the stage of prostate cancer that Joe Biden came down with. That was something that was years in the making. So you know either the doctors were lying or they were really bad doctors because they're not giving him the proper care that the President of the United States deserves. So yeah, somehow, you know, if you were out there suggesting that maybe Biden wasn't playing with a full deck, you were part of the misinformation. Right, you were part of the cheap fakes that KJP likes to harp on over and over and over again.
They're cheap fakes video. They are done in bad faith, and some of your news organization have been very clear, have stressed that these the right wing critics of the president have a credibility problem because of the fact checkers have repeatedly caught them pushing misinformation.
No. Here's the deal. The guy was suffering, okay? We all know he was suffering. We've seen all the videotapes over and over and over again. You guys didn't want to admit it because you guys had your little puppet in office and you wanted to continue. Anybody who disagreed with you was somehow, let me get it right, a DVE. Deviant. How about we go with that? They were the deviants. I'm not laughing because actually this is really, really serious. And the cover-up of Biden and his health issues, that's massive. The auto pen issue, that's massive. I told you before, I thought it was Jill Biden, Dr. Jill's chief of staff. That was confirmed actually by a member of the DNC just yesterday. When Project Veritas released that tape, we put it on the shorts feed. They caught him undercover saying, David Hobbs, saying that this was actually Burnell, that was the chief of staff to one Dr. Jill Biden that was controlling everything, right? Because she was controlling access to the president. Therefore, you had to get through her. And in order to get through her, you had to go through him. And so he was the scary one kind of running the whole show behind the scenes, probably with a few people like Obama and whoever else along the way. But again, remember, they don't think they did enough to cover up misinformation. And it's like, guys, you were covering up everything. And now it's all coming out and Tulsi's exposing every single bit of this. So she really is your worst nightmare, right? James Comey, didn't you say, oh, we can't let Trump win? We just can't let Trump win because he's going to go in and try and do this, that, and the other. Oh, yeah, he's going to go in and he's going to find it all. And that's freaking you out. Oh, it should. You also kind of, James Comey, seem to have a little bit of an ego. You know, I don't think you like my friend Dan Bongino very much, probably because he used to go after you on his podcast. And then recently put it all out there when he spoke to my former colleague, Maria Bartiromo. And he said, you're a weak guy. And he doesn't like weak people. James Comey got really upset about that, went on to CNN and started mouthing off, trying to diss Dan. One, because he's insulted, and two, why? Oh, because maybe he doesn't like this investigation that's going on. First over to Dan, talking about what a weak you-know-what. He spares us the language because he's like, oh, we're on TV, right? That Comey really is.
I don't even understand why. Why did they do that? I mean, why put the FBI and its reputation at risk? What, it was just to win an election? Why?
Because they're weak. Because they're weak. I hate weak people. I can't stand it. They didn't have, we're on TV, so I already said BS once, but they didn't have the guts, the courage, or the character to do the right thing. They did the easy thing. Donald Trump became a convenient political football. They thought they could leverage. They thought they thought with the media on their side that they'd get away with it.
But they didn't. Eventually they didn't. And now the chickens are coming home to roost, and you know James Comey is mad. He doesn't like being called weak, especially by a guy who's a former podcaster, Forget the fact that he worked at Secret Service. He's just a podcaster, right? James Comey wishes he was a podcaster. Why the heck else is he all over CNN and everywhere trying to get his moment of fame at MSNBC? I mean, seriously, why? Comey, like, you get a zillion other things to do. Oh, wait, he's selling books. Isn't that it? He's selling books. Here's James Comey getting a little testy about Dan Bongino, the podcaster, now at the FBI.
It's a little confusing to me, honestly. I'm sure it's a huge adjustment to go from being a podcaster to being the deputy director of the FBI, but I don't understand this tweet. First of all, I assume that the investigation of the pipe bomb that was found on January 6th was never closed. The FBI never closes such a thing, so I guess it means they're going to focus on it more. And as to the other things, I thought the Supreme Court marshal had investigated the leak of the opinion, the draft opinion. I don't know what the FBI's role is there. Cocaine at the White House, I thought the Secret Service investigated that, so I don't follow it and understand it. I also don't understand who the audience is for this tweet. The FBI often calls for public assistance, or in matters of great public concern will announce an investigation to reassure the public. This seems much more narrowly targeted, maybe to a former podcast audience.
That's potentially what's going on. I want to get your also reaction to an exchange the new FBI Director Kash Patel had with Democratic Senator Patty Murray during a recent congressional hearing. Listen to this.
Director Patel, where is the FY 2026 budget request for the FBI?
It's being worked on, ma'am.
Have you reviewed it? Have you approved it?
Not yet.
When will we get it?
As soon as I can get it from my interagency partners and get it approved.
That is insufficient and deeply disturbing. No response?
I've given my response.
Are you concerned that the FBI will still be able to fulfill all of its important duties with Director Kash Patel leading the Bureau?
I hope so. That I cringe at that clip. Actually,
I like cringe because
when will
it's
we
just
get
such a, darn it, it's such a setup, right? Like Wolf Blitzer, like it's like it's as though James Comey wrote the question, right? It's as though the left wrote the question. I mean, wasn't annoying, and they try to pretend they're news. Okay, so are you worried at all, James Comey? And he's like, oh, of course I am.
Are you concerned that the FBI will still be able to fulfill all of its important duties with Director Kash Patel leading the Bureau?
I hope so. That I cringe at that clip. I actually feel kind of sorry for the guy. It's like showing up for a final exam with no pencils and no paper, and you didn't even know there was a final exam. And so I hope the career people are able to support the director and the deputy director. There are lots of people in the FBI who know what they're doing. I hope these two guys are letting them guide them.
You think they know what they're doing?
The career people know what they're doing.
No. The career people know what they're doing, but the new director and the deputy director.
Nothing in their life or their career gives me confidence that they know anything about leading an organization like that. And so I would have serious doubts. I bet they do internally about whether they have doubts. Great. Let the people who know what they're doing give you advice and listen to them.
Yeah, because, Bongino is just that little podcaster. They used to work in Secret Service, or, hey, Kash, he's just that guy that likes to get out there as a flamethrower. I mean, forget the fact that he was leading the investigation, right? Remember leading the investigation into Russiagate. Oh, gosh, darn it, I guess he was leading the investigation into you, James Comey. That's why you don't like him, right? Oh, I see how this works. No kidding. Unbelievable. You're right, piece of my mind. Such a performance from Comey. He missed his calling. He should have been an actor. Comey was a bad lawyer, Jonathan Mason writes. A bad FBI director, and in general, pitiful. Yeah, pitiful. I mean, he was bad for everybody, right? He was bad for Hillary Clinton, right? He was bad for Donald Trump going back to 2016 because, he could have gone after Clinton and he chose not to because of the election and because she was the Democrat nominee. But then once he realized that Trump was winning the whole thing, what did he do? He put into place a whole little honeypot operation. We had George Papadopoulos on the show recently. He talked about how he had been spied on multiple times on different campaigns, 3 times in all. James Comey was very proud of this operation. Oh, he got, by the way, General Flynn too, and he was proud of the way he did it. I've played you the soundbite on stage with one of the MSNBC anchors, if you can call them that. personalities. Oh, she doesn't have much personality. You know, that Nicole, I always forget her name. Nicole something on at 4:00. Anyway, with the long hair parted in the middle. And he said to her he was pretty happy with, you know, how they ran that whole operation on Flynn, because Flynn didn't know any better. They just sent a bunch of agents over, asked him a few questions, and Flynn, trying to do the right thing, answered the questions, didn't get a lawyer. Ha 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 ha. Oh yeah, Comey, you're brilliant. You're just brilliant. I really don't know what this guy is up to or what his purpose is, but I'll tell you, he doesn't like Bongino. He really, really doesn't like Bongino. One single bit.
I don't even understand why. Why did they do that? I mean, why put the FBI and its reputation at risk? What, it was just to win an election? Why?
Because they're weak. Because they're weak. I hate weak people. I can't stand it.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the entire reason that Comey is out on TV flipping out. I mean, he doesn't like the idea that they're going back into the investigation into the illicit substances found at the Biden White House, which just happened to be found around the time that Hunter Biden was visiting the Biden White House. I mean, 1 + 1 is 2, right? Nothing goes away mysteriously. They investigate it for 10 days and suddenly you don't hear about it anymore. And Bongino's like, okay, I think we need to know the truth here. I think we need to know the truth about whatever's going on with the pipe bomb thing, and then we need to know the truth about the Dobbs leak. How is it that that information was leaked about the Supreme Court? That was a very deliberate leak. And so some of the things that were being leaked, it's like the FBI didn't want to take that opportunity to follow up on any of it. And this new team is like, we're gonna follow up. You know what else he said? There's lots of evidence that's going to be coming out. Lots of evidence that's going to be coming out, video evidence perhaps, about the Epstein case. I'm going to get to that in a second. But one more ding, shall we say, for Comey that came out this morning on Fox and Friends. His old employer there, he's back on the couch, Dan Bongino, dinging Comey, as only Dan can.
Of Jim Comey, because he cannot control himself and his emotions. He is a child. He is a big child. And let me tell you one more thing. Look at Jim Comey, who wants you to believe. Jim Comey taking a shot at the president. Oh, look at me. I'm such a victim. The president's going after me. He's making a ton of money on this book. The only person that got prosecuted was the president. Jim Comey, we're finding stuff even now. Wait till you read the stuff that's coming out.
Does he still have loyalists in the building? Because when I hear the FBI director saying, you guys are finding boxes that are hidden. Okay, how does that happen in the Bureau?
Well, we were there a couple of weeks, and luckily there were a lot of people up there who grabbed us by the arm the minute we came in and said, thank you for being here. You know, we need to talk. There are people there who are really horrified at what happened. And there was a room, and we found stuff, a lot of stuff.
A hidden room.
I wouldn't call it hidden, but hidden from us at least, and not mentioned to us. And then we found stuff in there, and a lot of it's from the Comey era, and we are working our damnedest right now to declassify. And just so you know, because I get the public, I totally understand people saying, well, do it now. The process is not all the information is ours to declassify. Some is other intelligence agencies. It's not, we literally can't do it. Once that gets done and that gets out there and you read some of the stuff we found that, by the way, was not processed through the normal procedure, digitizing it, putting in FBI records. We found it in bags hiding under Jim Comey's FBI. Quickly, you're going to be stunned.
The shells on the beach. Can you not talk to social?
Wow. There was a room full of stuff that didn't actually go through the proper process, didn't get digitized. What was going on? Apparently there was some video, it was kind of morbid, of Epstein as well. Wait, I thought all the video cameras were shut down. Hello? What about that story? Didn't they say that all the video cameras were shut down? And now Dan Bongino is telling us something kind of different here. You guys have to hear this. This is important. Dan Bongino coming out today saying that there's something suspicious, right, about the whole Epstein thing. And now he believes that Epstein did kill himself. He does believe that. He came out the other day, he said that with my friend Maria. And everybody's like, well, wait a second, Dan, because like you didn't believe that before. Some people are suggesting that, you know, maybe he did, but maybe it was for reasons we don't entirely even understand. And now he's saying there's all this evidence that didn't get properly digitized on Comey's watch. And now there's this other stuff that they found about Epstein. I got to play you this clip. Okay, this is kind of weird.
Those two cases obviously are of significant public interest. I'm just telling you what we see in the file. I just want to be crystal clear on this. I am not asking anyone to believe me. I'm telling you what's there and what isn't.
Right.
There is nothing in the file at this point on the Epstein case, and there's going to be a disclosure on this coming shortly. We are working through there is video. That is something the public does
There's
not
video
know.
of him killing himself.
No, not the actual act, but the entire MCC Bay, there was only one camera. There's video that when you look at the video, and we will release, that's what's taken a while on this, we are working on cleaning it up to make sure you have an enhanced, and we're going to give the original so you don't think there were any shenanigans. You're going to see there's no one there but him.
Right.
There's just nobody there. So I say to people all the time, if you have a tip, let us know. But there's no DNA, there's no audio, there's no fingerprints, there's no suspects, there's no accomplices, there's no tips, there is nothing. If you have it, I'm happy to see it. There's video clear as day. He's the only person in there and the only person coming out. You can see it.
So
Whoa. Okay. So why haven't we heard about this before? Really? Like, why is it taking to now? Because I actually think, and I mean, I hate to say this, but my own view on this, guys, is that unfortunately, a lot of this will be covered up because it may implicate U.S. intelligence. That if in fact U.S. intelligence knew exactly what this guy was doing, and how could they not have known? They were in on the act. And so that would be kind of, hugely demoralizing, right, for the United States to know that somehow we were A-okaying this operation, along with perhaps some other intelligence agencies around the country, because we needed the goods on Tom, Dick, and Harry. Take your pick. That's perhaps one of the reasons. But the fact that he's now saying there's video that's going to come out, I mean, I'm all ears. I want to play for you some sound from a guy named Patrick Betts-David. You may or may not know him. He has a podcast also on YouTube. And he has kind of an interesting theory. He thinks that Trump may be sitting on some of this evidence until a later point in time, maybe possibly when he needs it. I don't know if that's the case. I tend to take what Dan is saying at face value only because I've known him long enough and he's a pretty straight shooter, and I don't see why entirely he'd want to get up there and lie unless this is just framed in such a way that makes it so convoluted and even difficult for FBI investigators, those that have seen the file, to get to the bottom of what was really going on. If you believe my theory, which is that, maybe we knew and maybe we deliberately looked the other way, and maybe we continue to do that because we don't want to get implicated in any of this. But let me show you what Patrick Betts-David is saying.
You have two of the biggest supporters of not believing what happened with Epstein. You want us now to believe it? You want us now to believe that the people that were trying to take out Trump, nothing happened there? There's a part of me that believes Trump is behind all of this, not in the way that you think about it. There's a part of me that thinks Trump's behind all of this because Trump wants to use this as a leverage of negotiating against the enemy. So think about it this way. What if they had proof on what happened with Crooks? Should you drop it now, or do you need to hang on to that for the next 4 years to have control and authority? What happens if you hang on to that?
You're saying he's playing his cards close to the vest.
All I'm saying is
he knows something and he's doing misdirection.
So that's his theory, right? Maybe you hang on to this. I mean, the problem is you hang on to it if it's not going to continue in terms of its investigation process. If they're just wham bam slamming the case shut, saying, he did this to himself, then I'm not sure where that takes you and how you reopen after the fact. I do think it's all very, very, very weird and a little disappointing, right? Let's just say I think it's a little bit disappointing. We did hear from Caroline Leavitt the other day, actually, who interestingly seemed to echo what I think we all think, which is that there's more there. And he didn't seem to believe, the president that is, didn't seem to entirely believe what he was being told. So one of the reporters, I believe she was from the Daily Caller, said, hey, to Caroline, the president in his interview with Brett Baier seemed to indicate that he did not believe what Kash Patel and Dan Bongino were saying about the Epstein files. Do you agree with this? And or does he still feel that way? And she said, well, you just answered your own question with your question, because the president said that himself. So again, lots of sort of theories and speculations out there, but I will tell you this. I don't think Comey has any use for Dan. I don't think Dan has any use for Comey. And I do hope that we get at least some decent stuff out there and exposed. I got a lot of faith in Tulsi. I'm impressed with what she's doing thus far. And there's definitely more to come. I want to turn to Letitia James right now. Letitia James, gosh, she may be out of a gig. What do you think? I mean, they really don't seem to like her now. She's being dealt a new blow by way of the polls. I mean, this is sweet justice. Brand new story here in City Journal saying that her campaign is on the ropes. Her campaign is on the ropes because guess what? The polls show the voters in New York don't want her. The voters in New York actually aren't with her on this, in part, let's just say, because they seem to have bought in to the overall impression that this woman is a problem, not just because of what she did, right, with going after Donald Trump for $500 million. And New York City is different than New York State in general, but the weakness that she's showing, I think, is in part because the state of New York as a whole might be more in line with Stephen Miller than they are with Letitia James.
Letitia James says the allegations against her are nothing more than a revenge tour by the Trump administration. What's your response?
My response is that Letitia James is one of the most corrupt, shameless individuals ever to hold public office. She is guilty not only of those crimes, but of countless more crimes by using and abusing her public office to try to persecute an innocent man, depriving him of his rights, engaging in a conspiracy to obstruct our election, and to overthrow our democratic processes and procedures. She is guilty of multiple significant serial criminal violations.
Multiple significant serial criminal violations. And now if you look at these polls, this is pretty great, guys. Recent polls confirm that New York voters hold a relatively unfavorable view of the incumbent Attorney General. Siena College Research Institute poll from earlier this year found that while James has more favorable poll numbers than Kathy Hochul, her 40 to 33% favorable-unfavorable split is worse than one would expect for a Democrat Attorney General of New York. While most Democrats viewed the Attorney General favorably, she was underwater with Republicans, of course, and independents, and viewed negatively in every region of the state except for New York City. But maybe New York City will actually start viewing her negatively too, because I don't think that they're going to like what they have to do. They have to pay, apparently, for her legal defense. They really want to get hit with that. A $10 million slush fund. The Republicans are like, we don't want anything to do with this. She's trying to use taxpayer dollar to pay for her fancy schmancy Abby Lowell high-priced attorney that took care of Hunter Biden. So she's got a personal lawsuit against her, right? This is a personal thing because she's being accused of mortgage fraud. And it's darn suspicious. I'm just saying, it's really darn suspicious, right? And DiNapoli, who's the controller there in the state of New York, is getting pushback from Republicans who say, well, this isn't right. And even New York Magazine, as I told you the other day, has come out and said, this is a bad idea. She has, quote, inexplicably chosen to use the resources of her public office to respond to the investigation. They say that James is again displaying dubious ethical instincts in her response to this pending inquiry. I mean, her thing is, I have to do this. I have to do this because, you see, this is just a political stunt. Donald Trump is going after me politically because I went after him. And so because of that, I can use the $10 million slush fund. I don't think voters are with you. Here she is trying to explain it in New York.
As you know, we filed a lawsuit against Donald Trump and his family. We secured $454 million judgment against him, which is on appeal. The case is on appeal. I have no idea when that case will be decided. This investigation into me is nothing more than retribution. It's baseless. It has to do with the fact that on a power of attorney, I mistakenly indicated that I was a state of Virginia, but prior to that, I had indicated to the mortgage broker that, in fact, in bold cap letters, that I am not a resident of Virginia and never will be. And in the mortgage application, I indicated that I would not live in Virginia and I was not a resident. They just took the power of attorney and they're using that as a basis for enforcement for their investigation, when in reality, the power of attorney was never used to determine my eligibility for a mortgage for my niece for a home in the state of Virginia. My niece who has children, and because I am a good aunt, I wanted her to have a home.
Yeah, well, you may face 30 years in prison for this. I mean, you're a lawyer, for goodness sake. So the power of attorney, you're allowing them to sign off like that? It's just a technicality you're telling us? Well, there's been multiple technicalities. We've been through them, right? Think about not just the 2023 mortgage in Norfolk, Virginia. By the way, I wonder if the niece qualified for any kind of special assistance to pay the rent for her aunt's house. That would be kind of incestuous. All those federal funds, all those public funds. Hey, why not use public money? And I'm going to use public money to defend myself with Abby Lowell to the tune of $10 million. I mean, this woman is a joke, okay? Beyond a joke. And she needs to have her, you know what, voted out of the attorney general position ASAP. It may happen. It may happen. The subpoena is being issued. Right? And so all over the state of New York, people are saying, we're really not into her. We're really not into her. So this is the new blow that Letitia is being dealt. Don't forget, this is Norfolk House, Virginia. Okay, she lives in New York, and yet she's signing on in this mortgage documentation as a principal residence. It's not flying with upstate voters. I'm telling you, you get the brownstone. She's getting special treatment on that one, too, in New York. Because since 2001, she's been saying there's only 4 levels when there are actually 5. Poetic, right? Because I think she had an issue with Donald Trump claiming a certain amount of square footage, thinking that, that was going to give him a better mortgage rate with Deutsche Bank if he had a certain amount of square footage. In this case, she's actually using federal funds. Whole other different ballgame, right? Like this is actually a federal crime that carries up to 30 years. Then, of course, she signed on as her dad's wife to get this little number of a house. Who are these people?
What's your thoughts on Letitia James, Director Polte? According to him, Letitia James says that the alleged mortgage fraud was simply a mistake. I want to get your thoughts on that. She put down that her father was her husband in order, and this is very similar to, I guess, the false accounts they have on here.
Well, I don't know what it is currently, but Letitia James, who's the Attorney General of New York State, it seemed, I'm not involved in that at all. I know it's being handled by various groups, I guess, but it's major fraud, mortgage documents, and fraudulent everything. I think she said the father was her husband, which she had to have a husband, so she chose her father, and she put it down, and she had didn't she sign in Virginia, yet she said she lived in Virginia, yet she's the New York State Attorney General, and she did that for tax reasons, so she could take advantage of taxes. And she had the wrong number of units. She had a much different number, which wouldn't have allowed her to qualify and scam the government. So I don't know. I think she's very bad for New York, but I really don't know too much about it, but I appreciate the question. Thank you very much. Yes.
You bet she's bad for New York. Well, the media's turning on her. Voters are turning on her. I think, we're just waiting on that darn court. I'm getting a little sick of it, guys, because I think the judges know in that appeals court, it's gone to the appellate court, the case against Donald Trump, where you get that idiot judge Engoron, or however you say his name, trying to slap a nearly $500 million fine. I mean, with interest, it's $500 million that they're trying to hit the now president of the United States with, because they were trying to prevent him for running for president in the first place. I mean, people are on to this, right? We just talked about what Tulsi's exposed. We've just talked about what they were trying to do. We know all about the USAID money, all of these things, and these judges know it too. They knew it from the get-go.
May it please the court, Judith Vale for the New York Attorney General's office. All of the defendants repeatedly violated.
Ms. Vail, can you identify any previous case in which the Attorney General sued under Executive Law 6312 to upset a private business transaction that was between equally sophisticated partners, where the supposed victim had the ability and legal obligation to discover the allegedly misrepresented matters by conducting its own due diligence, where the supposed wrongdoer advised the supposed victim through written disclaimers to conduct its own due diligence and to draw its own conclusions, where the alleged misrepresentation almost entirely concerned inherently subjective valuations of properties and businesses.
Yes.
And where the victim never complained about any fraud in the transactional losses from it. Because I've gone through the cases which you've cited, and all of them always involved the consumer protection aspect. It involved protection of the market.
Several responses.
And I want to add to his question, and little to no impact on the public marketplace.
Exactly. Okay, you guys know it. We all know it. So get on with it, would you? Would you please throw the case out of court? Would somebody please disbar Letitia James? And please, New York voters, follow your gut. Vote this woman out. She is bad news, and she may, as we watch the eastern part of Virginia issue grand jury subpoenas, I think she may be heading to federal prison. I really do. I mean, and the media's over her. Voters are going to be over her. And it's high time that happened. Turning to another big story, I want to get to MSNBC because their ratings are just awful, and they're coming out with this Spinco thing, which they're calling Versant, some fancy French name. But we do that. Before we do that, I kind of wonder if like MSNBC is going to go away altogether. It's a fair concern. I just want to remind you, thank you for being here. We are growing. Turning to another business story, Spinco. Remember Spinco? Well, they got a fancy new French name like Versant or something. I don't know what the point of that is. But anyway, Versant is the company that's going to be spun off from one Comcast Cable, because Comcast is figuring out, well, cable's just not the place to be anymore, at least not in the content creation section, because, oh, gosh, you can do that over here on YouTube, right? You don't actually need to own an MSNBC if you're Comcast anymore, because nobody actually needs to go and get MSNBC content anymore, or even CNBC content. Let's face it, I used to work there, and the thinking was, well, you need CNBC because people need to see the stock prices. That was back in the day, right? Now you can get your stock prices anytime you want to get your stock prices. It's not like you have to have CNBC in order to see that, or Bloomberg, or anything else. It's not like you have to have MSNBC in order to get the news. In fact, I think most people would say, let me save myself the cable money and just watch whatever I can with this whole new crew, right, of creators like myself over here on YouTube and in other places, Spotify, for example, or Apple iTunes. You have all of this content now available for free in these places. So why would you have a heavy, pricey, expensive cable subscription? They're going out of business. It's a going out of business sale. Take a look at this one. Whoa, those ratings are bad numbers. Overall, for the month of May, MSNBC dropping 41% in the primetime demo, 34% in the total day demo compared to May of 2024 in total views. Networks down 33% over the course of the day, 24% in primetime. I mean, these are really bad numbers. MSNBC, total day demo viewership is at 49,000. Total day, average viewers, 73,000. Hey, you guys, we're doing better over here on the Trish Regan channel. 73,000, my gosh. It's over, okay? It's over. So Versant, the new Spinco that's coming out of Comcast and going to be traded on its own, and there's some tax advantages to doing it. Versant is actually coming out with its new lineup, and I want to point something out that's kind of interesting, shall we say. I was looking at the Hollywood Reporter story on this. You know, they're announcing all these new things that they're coming out with there at Versant. You know what's conspicuously absent? Let me see. They get new shows at Sci-Fi, new shows at USA Network, big stuff they're talking about at their NBC upfronts. Guess what you're not hearing about? MSNBC. Crickets. I'm not even seeing anything for CNBC. Crickets. Because, well, news to a certain extent now is a commodity. Let's face it, right? I mean, that's the reality of this business. And so if you're in the commodity business, you can kind of get it anywhere. So then it becomes suddenly something different. You're going to tune in as a viewer because you like a personality. You like their particular viewpoint. You're over here on the Trish Regan channel. I mean, we're growing, right? Because there's something that we're doing here that's different than what you would get, say, at these networks. And so you don't need the networks anymore. They become the commodity that then become very expensive to produce. Are you seriously telling me you were paying Rachel Maddow $30 million a year and now she's just down to 25 to do one show a week? I'm sorry, guys, that's a bad deal. That's a bad trade. You don't know what you're doing. In which case, I actually think there's going to be a certain amount of pressure on Versant to get rid of these heavy, expensive cable news anchors because they're weighing you down and you're not going to be able to turn a profit. I mean, it's not just MSNBC, for goodness sakes. I mean, look at this thing over at CNN. They're down 24% in total day viewers, 27% in the daytime demo. Primetime network dropped 18% in total viewers, 21% in the demo. I mean, you're looking at a primetime average there of 426,000 viewers compared to, well, Fox is doing great, 2.5 million viewers over on Fox. Fox is doing a lot better, maybe because people actually believe what Fox is telling them is now true. And look, I know Fox is not perfect. I'm living proof of that, right? You know, they're only going to take it so far. At some point, you can push the truth a little too much for even the corporate bigwigs to handle, perhaps at a place like Fox. But the reality is still this: they were more correct than the likes of MSNBC. They were more correct than the likes of CNN. CNN, whose Jake Tapper has to do this giant mea culpa all over network television now, and podcasts as well. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I was wrong. You were right. You bet we were right. That's why nobody watches CNN in the first place. And you know what else they don't watch? This little show number that's replacing MSNBC. Peppermint Patty, the redhead that used to work for one Joe Biden and used to sell his you-know-what all day long. Guess what? Her numbers so far registered a giant dip for the hour. I mean, she can't beat Rachel. I mean, you can't beat Rachel. I don't know what to tell you. Simone Sanders and the other ones, you know, they're not even beating, Joy Reid? Joy Reid with all her hate that she was pushing every single night. They can't even beat her. They're down 20-some-odd% over there, or 30-some-odd% there on that hour. But here's Jen Psaki, who is getting 46% less than the viewers that were watching at 9 p.m. last year. I mean, she's also down from Alex Wagner, whoever she is, right, who was there on Mondays, I guess, to take over for Maddow. But again, no wonder. You get Jen Psaki, who's, by the way, kind of terrified right now. Don't call it a cover-up. Oh, I wasn't covering up for Joe Biden and his deteriorating health and cognitive mental decline. That wasn't me. You wonder why nobody believes her? Here she is, pleading her defense.
I left in May of 2022, just for the facts here. And I have seen Biden once since then, when I took my daughter to the holiday party this last December after he had lost. And so I hadn't seen him in person during that period of time. I never saw that person, not a single time. And I was in the Oval Office every day that was on that debate stage. I'm not a doctor. Aging happens quite quickly. Were things that people saw during that period of time that were similar to that, or would have been in a category of that? I don't know, possibly, right? And all these books are going to tell us.
Like, do you think that were they actively covering it up? Were they sort of in denial, or was that just a bad debate? Like, what is your read on that?
Well, this is what I mean about cover up is a very loaded term, I think.
Well, it means you knew that it was really bad and you're pretending otherwise, versus you're deluding yourself, which I think is what people do a lot.
Well, I understand, but I still think it's like cover up is often like a crime, right? We're talking, when people use that term.
They say it's worse than the crime.
People use that term as they relate to Watergate or the covering up of not sharing public information about a war.
Yeah, and I'm not accusing anybody of a crime.
I understand, but other people have used that term, and I think it's a bit of a dangerous term.
By the way, Jake Tapper is using that. He actually says it's worse than Watergate. So, Jenny, I don't know. You got out of there kind of fast. Good move. You're not that dumb. It's just you're bad at television because nobody's watching. 46% decline. So where does this leave MSNBC, in my estimation? All right, and this is the business reporter in me. It leaves the company in a position where it either needs to cut costs drastically, maybe even get rid of the network altogether, or just completely reposition. They're probably not going to completely reposition. They're not going to call themselves like neutral news, pretending like CNN, okay, we stand for everything, even though we're totally left. I think they're going to continue doubling down on this leftist nonsense. They're hoping the AOC is going to ride them off into the sunset, which is why they're saying so many positive things about AOC lately. But there's just not a big enough audience for it, especially in a splintered environment where people are coming over here to little old Trish Regan, right, on YouTube, where we're growing 800,000 strong and getting all these viewers. It is a different marketplace. And so what they're selling, nobody's buying. So what do you do if you're Versant, the new fancy schmancy Spinco? You get rid of people like Jen Psaki, who are sucking at their performance, right? That's what you do. You get rid of them. You don't pay up for the likes of Rachel Maddow, who can't even deliver on her old numbers. You clean house or you shut down because you've got Sci-Fi, you've got the Oxygen Network, you've got all these other properties, right? Where you can offer something a little bit different and that is not basically putting you in opposition to the administration every single day, day in and day out, and wearing on your viewers to the point where they don't want to see it anymore. You either get rid of the network or you let it hobble on in a more cost-effective way. So again, gone are the big salaries. Didn't Joe and Mika say they were worried about getting fired? At one point, they may be gone. They may be gone. They really may be. I think you've already seen CNN do a lot of this. I mean, granted, they've had layoffs already at MSNBC, at ABC, at all of these places, right? This is just the new reality of the world in which they're living. But as we see Spinco come, or Versant, as I should say, to the public marketplace, there's going to be additional pressure on this company that's a standalone to actually turn some revenues. And if it just happens that Sci-Fi is, banking it, but MSNBC is losing money because they're paying all this, coin to the likes of Rachel Maddow, et cetera, or Jen Psaki, then it's over. Or Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski. It's over for them. They either shutter the place or they cut costs drastically. They do not have a choice. The world has changed, and I would say for the better, right? For the better. The world's changed, and keep this in mind. You've got all of this information coming forward to the point where I do think heads will still roll. I told you yesterday, look, whatever they were doing with one Joe Biden, whatever that was about, keeping him on the lifeline so that he could sign some auto pen things, that the representative from Tennessee is suggesting, without evidence, that might have been a pay for an auto pen, pardon, kind of scandal. You have Project Veritas reporting, one of the bigwigs at the DNC, one of the 5 people in charge, saying the person running the whole show was Jill Biden's chief of staff. Well, they're going to go down for this. Epically so. I mean, Guy Benson was on Fox the other day. I thought he said it really well, so I want to play this soundbite for you about just how they were actually in violation of the Constitution themselves, and they are going to have to pay the price.
They knew that the president was not capable of doing the job at least some of the time. That's not just a political scandal, and there's a big political scandal component to all of this, of course. That is, to use one of the other phrases that they like to employ quite a bit, a constitutional crisis, a real one. Right? The power of the presidency, all that authority is invested in a person who has been elected by the American people, in the president. If they felt like he couldn't get the job done at least part of the time, and I think it probably, that portion of the pie grew and grew as time went on, there is a constitutional mechanism to rectify the situation, but they didn't go there, of course, because that would have admitted that the conspiracy theory, quote unquote, was true about his capabilities and his function. And they were still planning on running him for another 4-year term. So you had basically in private, in secret, a small group of unelected people running the executive branch. That is not allowed under the Constitution. And that is a genuine, serious scandal.
You bet it is. You bet it is a major, serious scandal that Jill Biden and her chief of staff allegedly were running. I want to show you the video that Project Veritas put out. Okay, this is the video that came to us yesterday, in which David Hogue, who's now one of the top people there at the DNC, is saying that Anthony Burnell secretly ran the White House in this bombshell footage that they got. This is very, very, very interesting to me. I had actually suggested this to you guys all along. What do you know? I didn't even need David Hogue to confirm this, because it's just sort of logical. I mean, you think about it. If Jill Biden is the one in charge, and it turns out that she's controlling access to the president and to the auto pen in some way, shape, or form, then it stands to reason, does it not, that her chief of staff or whoever is on her staff is controlling things. We ran this on the shorts feed. I want to show you. Project Veritas out with a brand new undercover video in which David Hogue, one of the vice chairs of the DNC, admits exactly who had the power in the Biden White House.
The bigger issue was like the inner circle that was around Biden. That's it. And I can't stress to you enough. Like Joe Biden's chief of staff, like had an enormous amount of power.
Joe Biden?
Joe Biden's chief of staff.
That was like an open secret at the left. Like I would avoid him. Like he was scary.
What was his name?
Anthony Bongino.
I've never seen him.
Exactly.
What do you mean?
He's like a shadowy, like Wizard of Oz type figure. That's what made him so like.
I told you Jill Biden was pretty power hungry, and she had a chief of staff to carry it all out. There are going to be major implications for all of this, you guys. Major stuff to come. Watch. Yes. Okay. Major stuff. Good for Project Veritas. But I'll tell you, it makes sense, right? All the sense in the world. If she's controlling access to her husband, and her husband is incapacitated, as it seems her husband indeed certainly was, then she's the one who's controlling the access, and perhaps then the auto pen. So I think there's going to be more questions, okay? She was hanging on for dear life, for goodness sakes. I played this soundbite, but wow, it's good. If you're just joining us for the first time on the Trish Regan Show, and we have a lot of people that just started joining us, so thank you for that. Make sure you subscribe, hit the bell so you know when I'm live. Anyway, she was like, applauding him after that miserable, horrible debate, as though he was a 2-year-old who managed to use the potty for the first time, for goodness sakes.
Joe, you did such a great job. You answered every question. You knew all the facts. And let me ask the crowd, what did Trump do? Lie! Yes.
No, actually, Trump was magnificent. He did a great job. He had a sense of humor. You had your poor husband out there, and you tried to make him go further. I mean, come on. It's like cruel and unusual punishment. Leo Terrell over at the DOJ, he actually tweeted that the other day. He's like, maybe somebody should be investigating for mistreatment of elders. Because how could you keep him up there doing all that when he was so clearly not in the frame of mind to be doing it? For goodness sakes, bad people. But again, what about the proper health exams? What was going on with the people? Scott Cullen, thank you for your generosity. We have a few guys I want to just mention, because Unc Andy, thank you as well. We have a few people I want to get to with comments, and we'll get to that momentarily. But here's Trump, right? On like, there's no possible way that this works out well, because you either have a terrible doctor or it was a cover-up.
Do you want to respond to President Biden being diagnosed with cancer? Are you going to call your predecessor?
I think it's very sad, actually. I'm surprised that it wasn't, the public wasn't notified a long time ago, because to get to stage 9, that's a long time. I just had my physical. You saw that. You saw the results of that particular test. I think that test is standard to pretty much anybody getting a physical, good physical. We had the doctors at the White House and over at Walter Reed, which is a fantastic hospital. I did a very complete physical, including cognitive tests. I'm proud to announce I aced it. I got them all right. You proud of me? Yes. Your husband would be proud of me for getting them all right. It's a little risk. If I didn't get them all right, these people would be after me. It would be not a good situation. But I think, frankly, anybody running for president should take a cognitive test. They say it's unconstitutional, but I would say in that particular case, having a cognitive test wouldn't be so bad. But when you take tests, medical tests, as a male, that test is very standard. I don't know if it's given to everybody, but it's given just about. And it takes a long time to get to that situation. Now, I think to get to a stage 9, I think that if you take a look, it's the same doctor that said that Joe was cognitively fine. There was nothing wrong with him. Well, he said, if it's the same doctor, he said there was nothing wrong there. That's being proven to be a sad situation. And the auto pen is becoming a very big deal. You know, the auto pen is becoming a big deal because it seems like that maybe was the president who ever operated the auto pen. But when they say that that was not good, they also, you have to look and you have to say that the test was not so good either. In other words, there are things going on that the public wasn't informed, and I think somebody's going to have to speak to his doctor. If it's the same, or even if it's 2 separate doctors, why wasn't the cognitive ability, why wasn't that discussed? And I think the doctor said he's just fine, and it's turned out that's not so. It's very dangerous. Look, this is no longer politically correct. This is dangerous for our country. Look at the mess when you're talking about all these questions on Ukraine and Russia. That would have never happened. As an example of our president, would have never happened. The other thing is you have to say, why did it take so long? I mean, this takes a long time. It can take years to get to this level of danger. So it's a very, very sad situation. I feel very badly about it. And I think people should try and find out what happened because...
You bet. I mean, we have to find out what happened. We have so much work to do. I mean, like, a lot. We got to figure out what I'm looking at here, right, from Tulsi, how we began the show. If she's saying that the real enemy of the state is the John Brennans of the world, then what happens to them? Like, how do we make sure that nobody attacks our freedom of speech like that again? How do we make sure that we don't have people in the Oval Office as president that are clearly not physically and mentally able to do the job? How do we make sure of that, guys? How do we make sure that they don't cover everything up? It's really important. How do we make sure that Attorney General Letitia James goes down for what she did? I hope the voters of New York, I think they're smart and they're not going to elect her again. We see it in the poll numbers as we just discussed. But how do we make sure that she serves as an example? You can't do what she did. It is just flat out wrong. I'm looking at Pathfinder. Yeah, let Hogue continue to talk unabated. Never, ever disturb the enemy when they're in the act of their own self-destruction. Thank you for the generosity, by the way, Pathfinder. It's true. Right? And thank you for all the compliments. I see so many people here. You like me better here than when I was over at Fox. I like me better too. I mean, not that, you got me there, but you got me within a very controlled environment because I had to always send my darn commentaries to the higher ups and have everybody weigh in and, massage this word or that word. Here, we don't have any higher ups. It's just you and me, right? I am the higher up. Kind of refreshing, kind of nice. And I don't have to write a script, literally. I used to have a teleprompter here in the studio because my friends that had done Hannity's studio at his home came and put in a studio, and so we put the teleprompter and everything in, and I'm like, what am I doing with this? I don't need it. I don't want it. I hate teleprompters. I just want to talk. I know where I'm going. I obviously have sound I want to play for you. We have an outline. I work pretty hard on all that, but do you think I want to write out every single thing I'm going to say like they do in cable news, old-fashioned television? No, thank you. It's a new day. But I want to make sure that these people pay the price. I think that, and this is not retribution. This is just making sure that we get the right stuff ahead for the future. I mean, think about the things that have come out, ladies and gentlemen, right? Think about what Elon had exposed. Elon, by the way, out there at the White House, he's going back to work on the companies. Tesla shareholders are probably pretty happy, right? Because you saw the Cybertruck sales in Europe. Europe does not like Elon Musk very much. A lot of liberals do not like Elon Musk very much, which is kind of funny because they're all driving his cars. They bought him a few years ago when he was like, the greatest thing since sliced bread, because he's the one who created the EV industry that they so supported, even though he never got any credit for that from one Joe Biden and team. But, Elon is back working in his corporations, and we knew this day was coming. So as much as like the New York Times wants to say, oh, he's out, as though he was forced out, I think that is in fact a misnomer. I think Elon always anticipated leaving. He just set up Doge to be able to do some pretty important work, which he did actually get done. I mean, think about everything that did get exposed as a result of him. And meanwhile, they're sizing, or seizing the moment, I should say, with him criticizing the big, beautiful bill that's now moving on to the Senate. Maybe he's not getting everything he wants in there, but I'll tell you, the most important thing was that we got those tax cuts. Those tax cuts were critical. So I think we got those. And there's some other spending cuts that can happen along the way. Just a minute ago, I sat down with Ken Strang from AFP, Americans for Prosperity, to talk a little bit about this bill and what's ahead. Here he is. And here we are with my friend Kent. Kent, it's good to see you today because we got so much going on vis-a-vis all this budget stuff. And I got to tell you, I'm excited, but I'm also nervous. Let's start with, okay, we got the big, beautiful bill through Congress. Now it's in the Senate, but it's tight, right? Where do you see this heading?
It is really tight. It passed with a 1-seat majority in the House, and now it's going to go to the Senate. But let's talk about what the one big, beautiful bill does that's great for America.
Okay.
It codifies President Trump's 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. It makes those tax breaks that were lowered across the board permanent, makes the corporate rate permanent. But in addition to all those great tax policies, it also has border funding to secure our southern border. It expands health savings accounts for Americans to 20 million people. This is indeed the Republican agenda in one big, beautiful bill. And hopefully the Senate does their job on this and gets it passed and onto President Trump's desk soon.
But a lot of people are still worried that it's not going far enough. And you saw Elon left the White House. I mean, we knew he was eventually going to leave the White House and he had to get back to business, and, Cybertruck sales are down in Europe, etc. So he leaves. And of course, the spin on it from the liberal media, New York Times was just cheering this on, saying, he didn't get anything he wanted done. I'm like, I don't know, is the budget. And I guess this is good promo for my company here. 76portfolios.com. You can see how well we've been doing, but I want to be able to show you something because this is really strange. For some reason, the camera has gone out. I'm going to leave it there. We're going to resume the conversation with cameras that are working again tomorrow. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for being here, for all you do. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll talk again tomorrow.